Welcome to U.S. History. This is Chapter 22. We'll be talking about World War I. The war starts in 1914 and ends in 1918. The United States will not enter the war until 1917. One of the promises that Woodrow Wilson made in his first term is that he kept our boys out of the war and that we should stay neutral. But he will find that more difficult as time goes on. Causes of the war. The spark that creates the problem is the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. He was killed by a Serbian nationalist, uh, and this particular Serbian was part of an organization called the Black Hand. There had been warnings that there would be an attempt on the Archduke's life, but he ignored them. Uh, After the assassination of the Archduke, because he was the heir apparent to the throne, uh, Austria issued a warning to Serbia to have a full investigation. The Serbs agreed to part of this, but part of it they refused. Uh, and as a result of that, uh, Austria will declare war on Serbia. Now, Serbia is backed by the Russians. They consider themselves a protector of the Slavic people. So the Tsar of Russia will mobilize. Uh, Austria is backed by Germany. Austria had an agreement, a secret agreement with Germany that said that if they were attacked, that they would come to their aid. The Germans issue an ultimatum to the Russians to stop mobilizing. Uh, the Russians refused. Uh, as a result, the Russians have a secret treaty with France, which says that if either one of them is attacked, that they will come to their aid. So this is just a house of cards falling apart, and as a result, Germany will declare war on Russia and France in the early days of August. France and Germany had fought a war at the end of the 19th century. Germany had won and it had acquired some of France's territory. So they have old grudges they need to settle. Here is a memory aid that may help you remember the causes of World War I. One, secret alliances, nationalism, that is, that you felt your country was better than others. Imperialism, certainly these European powers, Germany, uh, England, France, were all vying for possessions overseas. Militarism, they were building up weapons, and so they were going to use them. Certainly, the Archduke Ferdinand's assassination is the spark that starts this war. Loyalty, this goes with nationalism, the love of country, patriotism, and something called social Darwin is, well, we'll see who is the survival, who can survive, who is the fittest. So there might be a memory aid to help you remember the causes of World War One. The players in 1914, in the red, you can see the Central Powers, and then you have the Allied Powers. And you have Great Britain, France, and Russia as the Allied Powers. They'll become known as the Triple Entente. And then you have the Central Powers, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Now, Italy is an interesting case because after about a year of the war, they're going to switch sides and they're going to go with the Allies. In the meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire will ally themselves with the Germans and Austria-Hungary. So the play is going to be set. Here's a picture of the Archduke Ferdinand. He and his wife were both killed by a Serbian nationalist. Germany will launch a massive attack through France and through Belgium. This is how Britain gets drawn into the war because they're going to defend Belgium's neutrality. And so they will declare war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. A year later, Britain, France, and Russia lured Italy on their side. here are the Central Powers, the Triple Alliance: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. The Triple Entente: France, Russia, Great Britain, Japan, Italy, and the U.S. later. Uh, Japan is entering the war because they have a treaty with Great Britain, a mutual protection treaty, and they also see the advantage of taking Germany's possessions in the east. These are pictures of the war: new technology, airplanes, tanks, machine guns. The machine gun was certainly one of the most devastating things on the battlefield. Millions of people are killed. The Western Front is going to be one of trench warfare. If you add up all the number of trenches and the length, it would probably have been about 25,000 miles. Here shows a replica of the trenches. Pretty miserable place during the wet season. Water, standing water, rats, trench foot, miserable place. And as you can see here, not the most appealing place. New technology in World War I, the tank comes into play. They're clumsy, they're slow, but they will have an effect on the battlefield. Here it shows a picture of an armored car. This breaks down some of the casualties. As you can see, Russia mobilized 12 million, killed or dead about 1.7 million. So they're going to suffer the most in World War I. And in 1917, they're going to get out of the war because they just can't stand up to the slaughter. The communists are going to take over, and Lenin will sign a separate, unconditional peace treaty with Germany, and they're going to be out. So it'll be left up to, at that time, Great Britain, France, the United States, Italy, and Japan. Here shows a German gun that was captured. U.S. stayed neutral through most of the war. We're going to suffer the fewest casualties as far as losses go during World War I because we stayed out of the war. The United States has a closer relationship perhaps with Great Britain than they do with Germany, although there are many more German immigrants than there are British immigrants in the United States. Of course, Irish Americans did not favor the British. They've had a long-standing hatred of them. Most Americans seem to be anti-German from the start of the war. But most Americans are eager to stay out of the war because of their isolationist policies. Wilson says that we're too proud to fight. This shows how that's kind of shaped up after, this is 1914. U.S. money flows to Europe, primarily to Great Britain and France, and to a lesser extent Russia. Initially, the war had a disastrous effect on our economy, but as soon as we started gearing up and making things for the Allies, and you wonder, well, why did we sell anything to Germany and Austria-Hungary and Ottoman Empire, is because there was a naval blockade that kept us from doing that. We were neutrals, so we were willing to sell to either side. And so the economy is going to get a shot in the arm because the British and the French particularly are going to need food and ammunition. So we become the merchants of death. We provide ammunition and guns and war materials to the Triple Entente, the Allies. German was technically free to trade with the United States, but because of the naval blockade, they were prevented from doing so. This shows a picture of the British Navy, the largest navy of its kind at that time. The U.S. is going to be drawn into the war uh, because of some factors. Um, of course, the propaganda that the British they controlled the battlefield in terms of information. They would portray the Germans as baby killers and committing lots of atrocities against civilians. Um, the British force all American ships to British ports, despite the U.S. protest, and essentially trade stops with Great Britain. Now, because of this, the Germans are going to declare a war zone around France and Great Britain and say that all ships must be sunk by their submarines. And they have a point. If we were supplying one side, which we were, the Germans have a right to defend themselves. Uh, the submarines tried to stop merchant ships, but this was a dangerous tactic because they could be rammed and sunk. Um, but they said, well, we'll try not to sink the neutral ships, but mistakes will be made. Wilson warns Germany that she will be held accountable if she sinks any of American ships. Now, one of the things that soured the Americans on the British is the sinking of the British passenger line. It was a civilian ship, and 128 Americans were killed. It sank very quickly off the coast of Ireland. Uh, Was this a justifiable sinking? Well, later we find out that there were war materials carried on the civilian ship, which was against the Geneva Convention. But Americans are going to blame the Germans for this unprovoked attack. How could they fire on an unarmed ship? And a number of Americans are going to be killed. The moral of the story is to stay out of the war zone, and you won't have casualties. But the Americans were not willing to do this. Now, the Germans apologized for the sinking of the Lusitania. Wilson warns Germany but will not ask for war. The Sussex Ultimatum, another civilian ship is sunk. This one is a French passenger liner. 80 Americans are killed. Wilson tells the Germans that unless they stop sinking merchant ships without warning, he will break off diplomatic relationship. At this point, we were just all talk. Germany resumes unrestricted warfare in 1917, and this is going to be one of the main reasons that we're going to declare war on Germany. Unrestricted submarine warfare was a way that the Germans could fight back and stop the flow of arms and materials to France and Great Britain. One of the reasons that the Germans decided to go back to unrestricted submarine warfare, unrestricted, is that they believe that the Americans will enter into the war too late. By then, the war will be over. Wilson will continue. He will break off diplomatic relationships. Another piece of information, the Zimmerman Note, which is the secret words for this particular video, is when they sent a telegram to the Mexican government asking them to declare war on the United States. And we'll stop right there, and we'll pick this up next.